Welcome to the USA Hockey Next Gen podcast, where the future of the game takes center ice. Join us as we spotlight rising stars, innovative programs, and the voices shaping tomorrow's hockey community. From first strides to big dreams, this is where the next generation begins.
Welcome to USA Hockey's Next Generation podcast. I'm Drew Shore, here with Lyndsey Fry, and today we're going to take a deep dive into looking at the USA Hockey's National Development Team program. Lyndsey, I had the pleasure of playing in the program a long time ago. It's one of the coolest experiences I've had playing hockey, and I'm super excited to talk to Scott and dive into it today.
Yeah, me too. I don't know personally, just from experience, a whole lot about the program. So for me, I'm just really eager to hear everything that goes on behind the scenes. Obviously, there's been so many amazing players that have come out of the program, but it's going to be cool to listen to them and find out a little bit more about your experience and other experiences and just the opportunities that exist within the NTDP for the next generation of hockey players.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's safe to say at the international level, especially for the Olympics, the Four Nations, USA Hockey is as strong as anyone. And I think one of the reasons we've been able to get there and kind of catch up and surpass other countries is just the creation of this program. And Scott has been there a long time. He was there when I was there and played a huge role in the development and kind of the progression of this program. But let's start off by showing people a quick video so they can get a little bit of an introduction and see what the NTDP program is all about. We are now going to be joined by a longtime friend and the Assistant Executive Director of the National Development Team, Scott Monaghan. Scott, thanks for jumping on. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Drew, and great to talk to you guys.
Let's start off by just explaining to people the NTDP. A lot of people are familiar with the success you guys have had in developing players, but can you start by breaking down when the program was created and kind of the mission behind it?
Yeah, the mission behind it was to try and really elevate our development on the men's side to be the best in the world. And we actually achieved that last April with the men's national team finally. But along the way, there's been a lot of growth, both within our national team structure, and I think it's helped with our youth hockey development as well and helped to raise the bar for everyone. We started in 1997. Jeff Jackson and Bob Mancini, who we all know well and is part of our staff, really built the concepts of this. And the idea was to take our best players and put them in an environment where they had to struggle, where they had to go through failure in order to grow. And, that core principle, I think, has stayed in place the whole way, including when you were here. I think you went through some failure along the way too, right?
Yeah, I definitely went through some failure, had an amazing time there. And I think the creation of the program has probably been the single most important thing for making USA Hockey what it is today. I played at the program in 2008. What are some of the biggest changes you guys have made since I was there?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones has been obviously the purchase of USA Hockey Arena, formerly CompuWare Arena, and getting our own home. Obviously, the program is the core tenant, but this is a home for USA Hockey. We've branded it. We've had our men's national junior team, our women's national team. We hosted a Women's World Championship here, which was probably still one of the coolest nights, winning the gold medal in overtime with a golden goal. And we still host youth hockey tournaments year-round in here as well. So we want to continue to grow that too. We're hoping to do some things with sled as we move forward. We're putting a big investment into the building over the next 12 to 18 months too. to keep us up to speed, right? Because it's constantly growing and changing out there.
Yeah. So Scott, I think for me, my biggest question is when young boys are going through their youth hockey careers and they're trying to evaluate, if they want to take that next step and really make it to the elite level and play the highest possible hockey that they can, what's kind of the sell to them as far as, come to our program versus going and playing juniors or going and playing, AAA hockey somewhere? Like what's really, I think, the differentiator for the national team development program?
I think it's probably the most unique program in the world, and actually in the sports world in a lot of ways. I think, and Drew can speak to it, the idea here isn't to win 50 games in junior hockey or hang a banner for a league title. It's to make the guys better, and we go through a lot of struggles along the way. Our U18 team lost a game last night in junior hockey. They made a comeback in the game. They lost the game, but a bunch of guys aren't getting benched for that. It's what did we learn from it? How do we get better? And we use our international events really as our markers for success with our teams, and that's where we really look at it. And we're about to start an international break here in the coming week, and that's where we really look at, okay, where are we in relation to other countries and the top players in those countries as we move along.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I think so often, especially on the boys' side, it's very measured by, how many guys make it to the NHL. And of course, there are some huge names that have made it to that level. Drew, of course, being one of them, having played in the NHL. But it's interesting to hear you talk about it's really the international side of it as a USA Hockey program that is the measuring stick. And obviously a big year coming up with the international events. But for you, can you just speak to, some of the highlights, some of the success for people that maybe haven't been paying attention to what's going on, whether it be on the U18 side, the men's, senior national team, just kind of share some of those success stories.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to the, where the banners do get hung, we've won 11 gold medals at the Under-18 World Championship. Drew was part of one of them. He had 3 helpers in the gold medal game against Vladimir Tarasenko, actually, and the Russians, and we've put up 7 with the men's under-20 program here in the last 2 decades. And prior to that, prior to 1997, we had 3 medals in non-Olympic competition at the World Juniors, and I think 1 or 2 at the men's Worlds, bronzes and silvers. It's been a big growth since then. Obviously, I think our total in the men's U18 is 24. The men's U20 is 13 or 14, and that's right. That's, as I said, our markers, but it is also the success on and off the ice. We want the guys to get better as players and as people. It's pretty cool now. We have a kid here whose father played here. I kind of thought that might be the last stop on the road for me when we had a kid get here whose father played here, but there's going to probably be more in the future. But we have a lot of guys now out there who are doctors, who are lawyers, who are in big business. Those are kind of the stories that are really cool for me that I take a lot of pride in. Seeing Drew here doing TV and things like this, that the guys move on after hockey. That's kind of what we try to tell them here. Your hockey career, as good as you may be, is still going to be fairly short, right? The best, only the very best of the very best play 10, 15, 20 years at the highest level. A lot of guys, play, but then they have to figure out life after they're 30, 31 years old.
I think that was one of the coolest things for me about playing in the program is just kind of the life habits that it gives you that I think you're not getting at other places, even at the rink and outside of the rink. And I think that it's such an intense program that, like you said, you see so many of my teammates either make the NHL and have long careers or have success in business or whatever they're doing now. And I think it's almost impossible to replicate like the intensity and professionalism of that program in any other environment.
It is, you're right, Drew, and it's, it is really hard, right? We tell the guys that when they come in. We almost don't recruit. We almost anti-recruit to a degree. We warn guys it's going to be really, really challenging. and you're going to go through failure, and you're going to have days where you're going, why did I make this decision? It could be way easier for me. And as you know well, you bring in 22 alpha males who are all the best player where they came from, and every one of them isn't going to get to be the best player anymore. So now the pecking order builds, and you learn as a high-level player, hey, I got to find my role and what makes me successful as a player. And I think that really, really helps us to build depth for our higher-level programs.
I think that is very interesting because you're competing every day against 22 of the best players in the world. And I think that if you're playing junior hockey or at a different program, a lot of the practice days or non-game days are a little bit easier than some of the stuff that we had to go through there.
Oh, yeah. The guys are, they played last night and they actually had a lift after the game. I think you probably remember that happening with Coach Ralston once or twice. And then they came in this morning and left. We have a practice and a lift tomorrow. Then we're on the plane over to Sweden and we play 4 games in 5 days over there. That's part of the grind, right? We always tell the U17 kids' parents, many of whom live here now. That's probably another difference, Drew, from when you were here. A lot of parents are now, they're portable, and they can move all over the country. And they come here. We have a real estate agent that's made a killing off USA Hockey here, with parents buying and selling houses. But those kids move here, and the parents, they say, why does my 17-year-old have a 1,000-yard stare right about now? In late October, and it's because they're gassed, because they've had really, really long days. They've still got school, right? We aren't in the public schools anymore, but we're in school every day, 4 hours a day with our academic advisor, Lisa Volmers. And then they have study hall, and then they have to keep their grades up, and we've had great success with that. So it is still very much, it's a pre-college program, right? It's 10 to 12 hours a day of grind, which is a lot for a 16, 17-year-old kid.
One thing I was just looking at, obviously, for me being from Arizona, you always wonder how these different programs recruit and what the opportunities are. But you look at the rosters historically and now, there's no discrimination around where you come from in the country. If you can cut it and you're ready for the challenges that you're talking about, you can make it. There's an Arizona kid there right now, Braden Willis, playing on the U17 team. Austin Matthews, of course, has in the past, but also you've got guys from Florida, from Texas, as well as the more traditional, Chicago's, Massachusetts, Minnesota's. I think that's one of the things that I think is really special is it really offers opportunity for anybody that is willing to put in the work and go for it and has the talent.
Yeah, Lyndsey, you're spot on, and it's really a microcosm of what's going on in USA Hockey as a whole, right? We're developing players. When I started in '96, it was the 3 M's and a little bit more, Mass, Michigan, and Minnesota, and some from New York and a few from Illinois. But now, Drew came from Denver. That's grown into a great place for players to come from. Players are coming out of Tennessee. They're coming out of Florida. We have a A-rated prospect here named Luke Shire right now. He's a defenseman. He's a legitimate Carolina born and bred kid, right? So they're coming from all over. And again, I think it's more a statement about where we're at as a country and in developing players as a whole, that you've got programs everywhere now that can help, kids grow and develop.
Everyone knows about the success of the first overall picks that you guys have had, the Eric Johnsons, Patrick Kanes, Jack Hughes. But I was going through some of the rosters, and I want to know if you can highlight any guys who maybe weren't super either highly recruited coming in, or you thought were going to struggle a little bit and then went on through the program to have amazing NHL careers.
Nobody that was here on the coaching side at that time ever wants to admit it, but Kaner's probably the prime example of that, and that we didn't take him out of the tryout camp. He didn't make the program out of the tryout camp. He ended up here because we had a guy get homesick and leave, and nobody gets homesick anymore because of the way society's changed. But at that time, a kid wanted out, and Patrick came in a week after we started. So he's a good example, but there are a lot. Like Trent Frederick's a great example. He was a kid in the 98 birth year, second, third line guy. He found his, as I said before, he found his niche. he's had a great, I don't know, 8 years now, maybe 7 or 8 years in the pros. There's a lot of examples like him that have gone along and just had really, really solid 6, 7, 8 year pro careers.
It also seems like you guys are really starting to become a factory on the coaching side of things too. I mean, Dan Mew's just getting hired in Pittsburgh, but I feel like that's an area of the program that not a lot of people talk about, is just how many coaches have started there and then gone on to had a lot of success as well.
Yeah, that's really fun to watch, obviously, when you're hiring guys and you've given them their first chance. And John Hines was my first coaching hire. He's worked his way up, and he's in Minnesota. We've got Muser, as you said, in Pittsburgh, and he's done a great job. And there's another guy. I mean, he was born and raised a good part of his life in Alabama. And he's coaching the Pittsburgh Penguins right now. Would somebody have told you that 20 plus years ago? And he's done a great job. And then you've got a lot of assistants and guys like David Quinn and Seth Appert. We've had other guys that were head coaches that have moved back to college, like Coach Ralston. And we've got some great college head coaches. Adam Nightingale right now is probably one of the hottest head coaches in college. He's done an unbelievable job of turning Michigan State into a power again, which not a lot of people remember because it was a real power when I was young in the 80s and early 90s, and it kind of slipped off for a while. Now looks pretty good.
So one thing, Scott, just to kind of bring this back to what we do here on the Next Generation podcast, we're talking predominantly to parents, to kids, people that are in the thick of it right now, that are really trying to figure out, how do I carve my path forward? How do I get there? How do I develop? So Drew and I have gone back and forth a ton just about our own experiences, but from your vantage point, working with some of the absolute best athletes in those age groups from the country, what would your advice be to the next generation of athletes that want to get into the program and that are just not entirely sure what it is that you guys are looking for?
I think the first thing, and for parents especially, is just let them have fun, right? Let kids have fun. At the youth hockey level, you can't project out what's going to happen with folks, where kids are going to end up, how well they're going to develop. Let them have fun, and they'll embrace the game and continue to want to play. And those are the first steps towards them developing into really good players. And then, the steps beyond there that take care of themselves are going to happen. I think for players, it's just listen to coaches, right? Listen to the coaches, listen to what you're being taught, embrace it. I've always said kids should play multiple sports. I think that's still something that we stress, playing hockey 12 months a year nonstop. Get out there and play soccer, play some baseball, play golf. Well, they all play golf, right? Everybody who plays hockey plays golf except me. I gave that up early on because I wasn't very good at it. But get in there and play other sports, right? I think that helps guys develop a skill level that's very different. I still watch the European kids because every kid over there plays soccer their whole life, right? They always have incredible foot skills with the puck, with how they move. And I truly think that's a little bit of that soccer background that every kid there has. And then I think don't get caught up in stuff. One of the things we have a saying here, whenever you hear a parent say we, you've got something you got to watch out for. Don't say we. It's not we. It's your child. And your child, you want to give them all the best opportunities to go forward and succeed. And don't force them down a path. Let them follow a path. I think we have a great development model with the ADM that helps set that table right up through the U14, U15, U16, all that. And I think if they follow along with that and follow USA Hockey principles, whether or not their kid ends up here, ends up in junior hockey, plays Division I college, plays club college, which I played way back when, they'll have a good time and they'll be a hockey player for life, right?
It's so cool to hear you talk about that. I mean, the program is a place that so many young players dream of making it to. And I think sometimes they feel like, oh yeah, they're telling me to play other sports. Oh yeah, they're telling me that I need to have fun. But if I want to make it, I have to do X, Y, and Z, and I have to be all in all the time. And so I think that's really important to hear someone like you say all of the things that USA Hockey is preaching are relevant and are as important at the NTDP. My last question for you, though, is we've talked about, work, the grind, the struggles of being part of the program, but how do you guys infuse that fun to keep the guys going and to keep them, enjoying it? Because at the end of the day, I always tell our players, it's a game. Like, we play games. That's what we get to do. It's supposed to be fun. So how do you guys infuse that?
There's a lot of different ways that we do that. And every coach, right? I think one of the secret sauces here is we don't overcoach our coaches. We try to find really good guys. We have there's a template that goes all the way back to when Drew was here and all the way back to the beginning of, we're going to train hard, we're going to practice hard, but we let them run their own teams and within that template, do what they want. And they all have a little bit different things. Coach Muse had little games that they used to play before video sessions to see who took the lead. They do things at the end of practice, like nothing different than anybody else does, shootout challenges and things like that. And then every group kind of finds stuff that they like to do as a group and have fun. And I know the guys that I talk to, always their memories are these trips like the one we're leaving on here shortly. That's where they have a lot of fun together, going on the travel over and coming back. Some of the toughest times but funnest times are, that flight into Siberia when we're going to Russia, which unfortunately we don't do right now, but the things that happen around it, right, where you're stuck in the airport waiting for the plane and things like that. So, but the kids also make fun too, right? Teenage kids know how to create fun, guys and girls, and they do that when they're here. And I think that's kind of what keeps them motivated as they go along.
Where are you guys headed to for your first international trip this year?
The U17s are up in Truro, Nova Scotia, for the U17 Challenge, which I believe you played in when you were here as well. That tournament still goes on. The 18s are on their way over to Ulricehamn, Sweden, which is near Gothenburg, for a Five Nations with the Finns, Sweden, Czech, and the Swiss, who have kind of replaced the Russians at those events in recent years with the changes there. And that, it's kind of standard 4 games in 5 days, grind it out. There'll be a bunch of scouts there. Nobody's cheering. There's 100 guys in there all in black coats with notebooks, and a handful of parents, right? And there's no big crowds or anything like that. But they're great games, and some of the funnest games to watch, and, great team building at that for sure.
I want to lighten it up before we let you go here, so I'm going to go with a couple quick rapid-fire questions. You've been there a long time. What's your all-time favorite moment since you guys started the program?
There's a lot. I will tell you, one of my favorites, one of the most emotional, was when we were in Fargo, when you guys were going out to play Canada in the semifinals. I was in the hallway. You guys went out, and it was the first time we had really played on home soil in a major event. And, man, that place was so loud. You couldn't hear yourself think. It was really cool. And if you remember with that event, we almost had to cancel it. The Red River flooded. It was a mess, right? But it ended up being a great event. And then you guys won the gold. And that game was kind of anticlimactic. The Canada game was 2-1. I think another one that was similar to that, again, with Canada, we were over in Germany. I remember we arrived and it was the World U18s, and we arrived at this arena, and it was open air with a roof. I remember looking at it, and I wanted to say to the guy, "Hey, you guys under construction?" Because there's no walls. You're going to play a world championship in here, right? And we ended up winning that one. That was a 93s. The next group after you guys, we won both the semifinal and the final on overtime goals, which was really, really cool and a lot of emotion. And then probably the biggest one, which was not NTDP, it was a U20, but and back when Coach Johansson was with us in Saskatoon in 2010 when John Carlson scored in overtime, that was the opposite of Fargo. I've never heard a building go from extremely loud, the volume of a lawnmower, to dead quiet. in that span of time. And that was a really, really cool moment.
I know how much you care about all the kids who go through there, so this one's going to be tough for you as well. But if you had to make an all-time starting lineup from the players who have played through there, through all the errors, what would you give me?
Oh boy, that'd be challenging. I'd probably need some time on that. But obviously up front, there's a lot of names. I mean, presently you've got 3 guys in the NHL that would kind of, I mean, if I went present more or less, it would be pretty easy. Eichel, Kane, Matthews up front. On the blue line, you've got Werenski and there's a bunch of other guys, but probably Seth Jones. And then in net, right now, I would say probably I would go with Jimmy Howard just because he won our first gold medal in Slovakia back in 2002. But there's, I mean, right? That's kind of a hard one.
Yeah, the Olympics are coming up this year, so I'm sure it's got to be fun for you to watch some of the guys you knew when they were 16 and 17 years old just go on to have not only the NHL careers, but then also the success on the international level as well.
Yeah, and we did John Van Beesbrook, God bless him, came up with a great idea. The Olympic pre-camp for both the men and the women was here, and the men came in as we were doing orientation for the NTDP, and we actually did a little interface with the 2 groups. We took them in the restaurant, and just informally, all those players mixed and mingled with all the kids on their first day here. And man, there were a lot of wide-eyed kids that night. But it was great to see those guys as men now too, right? And you know, they were all talking about how they remembered how scared they were when they got here and things like that, and how nervous you are on that first day. And they were talking to the kids about it. And this will be really the first Olympics where we're going to have a really heavy level of that team. In 2010, I think there were 9 or 10 NTDP vets on that roster, and that was probably a stretch at that point because we were still young. Our first, 3 or 4 birth years didn't have a lot of guys that had success long-term in the pros. Now there's such a depth. I mean, we had 90 guys in the NHL as of yesterday morning, and that's a lot of guys to be able to pick from to put a team together. And obviously, the part that we kind of miss when we keep talking about it, it's not the only path, right? There's a lot of other paths, and there's guys that don't make it here that maybe aren't the best kid at 16, but they end up being Kyle Connor, right? When they're 19 years old, and Johnny Gaudreau and guys like that. And that's going to be a really good team. It's going to be fun to watch the Olympics this year for sure.
Scott, it was a blast having you on. It was good to see you again, and congrats on all the success you have, and look forward to cheering the boys on during the Olympics with you.
Great. Thanks. And great talking to both of you, and look forward to doing it again sometime.
Lyndsey, that was awesome. I've known Scott for a long time, and being able to see what he's still able to accomplish there year after year is pretty remarkable.
Yeah, that was a ton of fun, especially for me. I don't know a whole ton about the program, so that's why I love getting to talk to you, just to continue to learn more, and of course talk to Scott. But it's sort of unique that we have you here to be able to share with people a personal experience. So when you think about your absolute favorite moment during that 2-year stretch, what would it be?
For me, that's really easy. It was definitely winning the gold medal in Fargo at the end of my U18 year. And it's such a hard program that you go through so many ups and downs, just not only on the ice, but just also going through life at that stage and being a junior and senior in high school. For all of that to be able to come together and for us to be able to win was really cool.
That's awesome. And then I think the other thing that he talked a lot about is like we bring you in to kind of teach you how to deal with struggle, and we push you to your absolute limits and all of those things that he was discussing. What did that look like for you? Like, can you give an example for a 14-year-old kid that's listening to this? What does he mean by that?
I think it means just how intense the day-to-day grind is. I mean, it's a little bit different now, but we were going to school from 7 till 12 or 1 o'clock, and then we'd be at the rink from 1 until 7. And it would be a combination of hours and hours of working out, practicing, running, boxing, watching video, and you're competing every day against 22 of the other best kids in the world. And I remember that being the biggest difference for me is that normally when you're that age, you're the best player on the ice and you can kind of coast through practices throughout the week. But every single day there is almost as intense as a game day. And I think that one of the other things that really does is create some really cool bonds and friendships. And there were some guys that you battle with every day there for 2 years that go on to be some of your lifelong friends. And overall, I just have a ton of great memories of playing at the program.
That's awesome. And my last question I was going to have for you is, I think one of the things he talked about was just the idea that it's a development program. I mean, it's in the name. You're there to develop, you're there to get better. And there's a lot of unique ways that they do that. But he said, if guys make mistakes, like we're not here to, sit players for performance. We're not here to measure ourselves with domestic competition, I think was the word that he used. Did that create, obviously you came to the rink and you knew you had to bust every single day, but did it create almost like a little bit more of a safe space for you guys, knowing that every single person here, whether you're the top guy or maybe, a little lower in the traditional lineup, did it create that space for you guys to be like, no, I'm here to get better and not be so like stressed or worried about, am I going to get to play today? Am I going to get to dress today?
Yeah, I think even the way they set up their schedule, and he talked a lot about that, whether it's working out the day before a game, and like that doesn't happen typically in a junior hockey league schedule because they're focused on winning the game the next night. But he emphasized that especially that 17-year-old year, their main focus is getting guys better. And I think they do that. And a lot of it comes down to how they kind of structure the weeks and the schedule and the games. And I think that every single guy there has a goal of playing in the NHL. And I think that's very unique too, because you're just surrounded by other people who are so competitive and want to achieve the same things that you do in the game and also in life.
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is just anytime we talk to high level coaches, high level players, they talk about the grind. They talk about how hard it is. Every single day you show up to practice, like you've got to work, you've got to go 100%. And I loved, though, that at the end of the day, he brought it back to what you and I talk about all the time, which is if you're not able to have fun while you're working hard and while you're going through the grind, you're going to be miserable and your flame's going to burn out pretty quickly and you're probably not going to be there very long, or your hockey career is not going to be very long. And so I loved that even at the highest levels, he's talking about fun. And that was, for me, I think the biggest takeaway of the whole thing.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that a bunch. And I think from what I've noticed from the game's best players is everyone's going to have to do pretty much the same level of work to get where they want to be. But it seems like the guys who end up having the best careers are the ones who really enjoy doing that work and think going through that daily grind is more fun and don't actually view it as work. And something I want to ask you, and that Scott brought up that was interesting, is he just said that it is the best development program in the world, but kids are not all developing at the same pace. And there's certainly a lot of guys who maybe aren't the best player at 16 who don't get the opportunity to go to that program, but maybe develop at 18 or 19, like a Johnny Gaudreau or a Kyle Connor. And I just thought that was an important, because I'm sure you see it coaching every day, that so many kids get stressed out on where they are today, but no one is playing in the NHL or the PWHL at 16 years old. So being able to zoom out and really focus on enjoying the game and developing, I think is more important.
Well, I think it's twofold. I think one, it's not just the actual program itself, like the idea that if you don't make it into the program, you still have opportunity to develop beyond that. But I also think the age is really important. So, they're working with 17, 18-year-old kids, and they're saying that you might not really reach your top potential to get seen or to get recruited or drafted or whatever until you're 19 or 20. And so I think you hear these types of things from somebody who's in the thick of it every single day, has been involved with the absolute best players in the world that are going to be Olympians, that are superstars in the NHL. And yet we see so many people around the country being like, if I don't get on this path at 11 years old, then it's over for me. And I just think that's such an important reminder. And I'm so glad you brought it up. I think it's such an important reminder for the players, but also for the parents, that if you kill the fun at 11 years old and you put them on such a rigid path at that age, they might not even find out what their potential is, because they may not like it by the time they get to be 17, 18, 19 years old. And so I think that's such a great point. And yeah, I think it's just another, the flip side of that is don't give up. I mean, just because you don't make it into the program or make it onto a junior roster that you want to, or in a particular league, that doesn't mean you have to slow down. I mean, I saw a kid on the Harvard team. He didn't get drafted until after his draft eligibility year, and it's because he just had an unbelievable college career. So you just never know, and that guy's going to probably be on the Swiss Olympic team this year, and it's never too late to find what your niche is and find where you can be successful as a player, and it might just take you a little longer than some of the other guys that peak when they're 17 years old.
I thought it was crazy too. I mean, I played in the program, I'm a huge fan, and have always been a fan of Patrick Kane, and I had no idea that he wasn't even originally selected to that team. So I thought that was pretty interesting to hear as well.
Yeah, but I think that's like such a testament to that probably created a chip on that guy's shoulder that I bet if you talk to Kaner now, he probably still remembers that moment as being like a really pivotal piece of his career of, I didn't make it on there, got the late call up. Like, talk about having something to prove every single day when you come to the rink. And I'm sure that just motivated him to excel even further. So I think, again, in the grand scheme, when we talk about the next generation of hockey players, sometimes, as hard as it is and as much of an ego hit as it is, sometimes getting cut from a team is the absolute best thing that can happen to you. I got cut from the senior national team when I was a freshman in college and was like, oh, okay, I guess I have two options here. I can either throw in the towel or I can make some decisions and keep working and have that chip on my shoulder. And I think that's such an important part of learning how to be an elite athlete, is learning how to fail, which, you know, Scott and you talked about a lot.
Speaking of the next generation, one of the hottest programs in the country right now is the Chicago Mission Hockey Club. And next week, we are going to be joined by Gino Cavallini, and I'm excited to interview him and just kind of hear about how he thinks about development, because whatever they're doing there is certainly working.
Yeah, what a powerhouse. Every single person in the country that plays within the USA hockey system knows of Chicago Mission. So really looking forward to that conversation with Gino. And Drew, as always, an absolute blast to be able to do this with you, my friend. And also really cool for me just to hear a little more in depth about your story and your experience with the NTDP. So we will look forward to seeing everybody next time on the USA Hockey Next Generation podcast.
See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the USA Hockey Next Gen podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share, and follow us for more stories that inspire the future of the game. Until next time, keep skating forward and growing the game one stride at a time.